Welcome back to Chess E4E5. In today's video, we'll be breaking down a thrilling game from the second UzChess Cup 2025. On the white side, we have Grandmaster Praggnanandhaa, rated 2767, representing India, one of the brightest young stars in the chess world. On the black side, his opponent is Grandmaster Shamsiddin Vokhidov, rated 2644, representing Uzbekistan, a solid and sharp competitor known for his tactical eye. Let's go through this game move by move. Praggnanandhaa starts the game with pawn to c4, entering the English opening. Vokhidov replies with knight to f6, a flexible and classical response. Then Praggnanandhaa develops his knight to c3, and Vokhidov quickly strikes the center with pawn to e5. White plays pawn to g3, preparing to fianchetto the bishop, and black brings out the bishop to b4, pinning the knight. White responds aggressively with pawn to e4, grabbing the center, and black counters with pawn to d6. Praggnanandhaa stabilizes with pawn to d3, and black continues developing with knight to c6. Then white plays pawn to h3, a useful move preventing any pieces from jumping to g4. Black replies with pawn to a6, gaining space on the queen side. White reroutes with knight to e2, likely heading to g3, and black plays pawn to b5, beginning a queenside expansion. Praggnanandhaa develops his bishop to g2, completing the kingside setup, while Vokhidov places his rook on b8, preparing to pressure the b-file. White castles kingside with short castling, and black responds with bishop to c5, an active central square. Then white plays rook to b1, possibly preparing to meet b4, and black castles kingside as well. White continues with king to h2, a quiet but useful move getting off the g-file. Now the storm begins. Praggnanandhaa plays pawn to f4, signaling his intentions for a kingside attack. Vokhidov captures on c4 with bxc4, and white recaptures with dxc4, maintaining central control. Black jumps in with knight to d4, centralizing aggressively. White responds with pawn to f5, locking the center and making way for a pawn storm. Vokhidov plays pawn to a5, pushing on the queen side, but Praggnanandhaa charges forward with pawn to g4, throwing everything toward black's king. Black plays bishop to a6, increasing diagonal pressure, and white stabilizes with pawn to b3. Vokhidov plays pawn to c6, reinforcing the d5 square, and white continues with knight to g3, bringing more force to the king side. Black moves knight to h7, perhaps hoping to defend via f6, but white plays knight to h5, jumping right into action. Black plays pawn to g6, trying to slow down the attack, but Praggnanandhaa sacrifices the bishop with bishop takes h6, a fearless and sharp move. Black takes back with gxh5, and white pushes pawn to g5, aiming to rip open the king side completely. Vokhidov shifts the king with king to h8, but it's already looking dangerous. Praggnanandhaa places the queen on h5, coordinating everything. Black responds with rook to g8, but white crashes through with pawn to g6. Black captures with fxg6, and white replies with fxg6, opening files for attack. Vokhidov plays rook to b7, but white increases the pressure with rook to f7. Black exchanges with rook takes f7, and the pawn recaptures with gxf7, now only steps away from promoting or delivering mate. Black adds rook to g7, trying to defend, and white calmly plays rook to f1, improving his coordination. Vokhidov plays queen to f8, defending against immediate threats, but Praggnanandhaa sacrifices another piece with bishop takes g7, and black captures back with king takes g7. White plays pawn to h4, pushing more pressure, and black replies with bishop to c8, trying to hold the light squares. White plays bishop to h3, keeping control of key diagonals. Black takes the bishop with bishop takes h3, and white responds with rook to g1 check. The king goes to f6, and white plays rook to g8, eyeing the back rank. Black plays queen takes f7, trying to survive, but white immediately checks with queen to h6. The king escapes to e7, and finally, rook to g7 seals the deal. With no way to defend, Vokhidov resigns. This was a masterclass in attacking chess from Praggnanandhaa: sharp preparation, precise calculation, and unrelenting pressure. And get this, he played the entire game with an astounding 99.1% accuracy. That's nearly perfect chess. If you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment about your favorite moment in the game. See you next time on Chess E4 E5.